Okay, so we're going to look at Stitch though today. And I can't wait to look at this because my first glance was just, oh my God, it looks like you're doing it, which is
Yeah, we
awesome.
finally got it. It finally came together.
Yeah.
This session, he was, you'll see it in a minute, obviously, he's a little bit lacking forward compared to some other sessions that I've been doing with him. But I kind of wonder if it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and that's normally when they kind of have their little nanny nap after their breakfast.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if he was just a bit tired, not really it was a little bit warm, and kind of wonder if he just wasn't quite in the mood for walking around.
No,
He'd rather have a little
slow.
nap in the corner.
Um, and slow is something I have to talk about with most people because the entire sort of traditional view of training horses is that you want this energetic forward. And I go, yes, we all want energetic forward, but I want the energetic forward to be coming through the back and hindquarters. That's the correct and sustainable way. And so
Yeah.
when we start to influence the speed a lot, then what we typically do is cause them to drop the back and have to shift their stability to the front end again in order to do what we're asking. When
Yeah.
I've allowed the horses to just choose their speed, as they're gaining stability through the back and hindquarters, 99.9% of all of them go incredibly slow. Because
Yeah. Okay.
if they had been using their back and hindquarters, we would not have had the problems we had. And like in
Yeah.
Stitch's case, when you were trying to hand walk him and he's constantly biting you, he's sort of saying, I'm unhappy about this. And then on the lunge line, where he was going way too fast and stopping and not wanting to go, and all of that sort of, you can think of it as when you get these big energy fluctuations and kind of defensive behaviors. That's the horse telling us that they're not organized in a comfortable way in their body. And what we do in training is we sort of go, well, if I can get him to do X, Y, and Z task, he'll figure it out. And I go, I don't see that working very well. So if we take another view and go, okay, let's stabilize the midline, let's encourage him to use the hindquarters, which is what you've been working on. And as they gain more engagement of the hindquarters and they actually start to use the back and hindquarters in the role of not only pushing forward motion, but also stabilizing forward motion. That's
Yeah.
how you free up the muscles around the shoulders. It's how you lighten the front legs, and it's how you free up the muscles of the neck. It all depends on that stability shifting to the back and hindquarter. And
Yeah.
what's been fascinating that I didn't really expect to see, but it's been very consistent, is as they start to actually move correctly, they are so slow, so
Yeah.
slow, and a little bit
Yeah.
wobbly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
joke, it's like in a cloud of turtle dust, we're kind of moving along. And that's why
Yeah.
I make a distinction between a horse that's moving slowly is comfortable enough with what we're doing that we should continue what we're doing. A horse
Yeah.
that's stopping a lot and having a hard time moving forward at all is a horse telling us what we're asking is a bit too much just yet. We need to make it easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it does.
the speed they choose, I've just learned to ignore. I go, sometimes they're
Yeah.
a little fast, sometimes they're just pokey slow. But
Yeah.
if he's essentially self-propelled, what you'll find is as he stabilizes a better use of the hindquarter and the spine, he'll start to offer you more forward energy, but but
Yeah.
it'll be kind of a controlled forward energy that feels more regulated without the kind of spikes up and down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense. It would no doubt take time to develop the muscles up and the balance up. So yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
And so what
And
I'm looking,
I've just been, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've just been following behind him, whatever kind of speed he wants to do. I'm just, yeah,
Yeah.
getting towed around.
No, and you're adjusting your speed beautifully.
Even
So
looks better. Like I can notice the difference in how he stands in the paddock. He just looks a little bit different.
yeah. Yeah, his back has relaxed tremendously. All of his muscles look, and I know he's probably a little bit got some extra fur for the winter, but
Yeah,
he's
he's turned very.
no, I can really see the difference in his body, just a softening effect where he was kind of a tight, like when he was snarky, he's also really tight,
Mm,
right? So you probably see
yes.
that he's a
Yeah.
tiny bit friendlier these days, as well as
Yeah, that's
softer.
noticeably.
Hmm.
Yeah. The body worker really noticed it when she came around last time because the time before last or a while ago, he would snarl at her and try to nip her the whole time. And he was really happy to see her this time. So that was nice.
And I was just saying to another client today, because in the process of change, what we're essentially doing is unwinding years of dysfunctional use in our horses. Like we're not
Mm,
working with spring chickens and,
no.
uber high-end talent. Well, even with uber high-end talented horses, they all have their dysfunctions. Um,
Yeah.
but in this unwinding period, sometimes they look a bit worse in the process before they look better.
Mm,
Some things are
hmm
slow to change, some things are quick to change. And so I'm looking at sort of the mile markers just to know I'm going the right direction. But what I
hmm
was saying to another lady today was it was my farrier, my body worker I trusted, and the vet that really helped me realize there were changes manifesting that I couldn't see yet. And that's part of what gave me the patience with either the slow speed or the time or the repetition it took, because somebody putting their hands on the horse, kind of feeling like a body worker or a
mm.
vet, they can feel changes that we can't see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
we're not that trained to feel what they feel. But those were
Mm,
always having the body workers and the vets and the farriers being able to see the changes before anybody else could was always a
hmm
really good, it was a great way to know I was on the right track, because
Yeah.
the body is not going to lie to those professionals.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and his behavior getting better and better is kind of the bonus that you're on the right track. But just looking at him, he looks softer nose to tail. He does not look like he's wrapped up so tight. He also looks
hmm
like way more cooperative than I've ever seen him with,
Mm,
between even the lunging or where you were starting with the hand walking him when we first began. He always looked like he was putting more effort into sort of getting out of the work than
yes.
doing the work. And we
Yeah.
saw a
Yeah, totally.
nice, yeah, we saw a nice breakthrough, like a change on the lunge line. But then as he was getting less stable, that's going to go the wrong way. And so
hmm
switching to the long reins, he really looks like he's mostly concentrating on the feel between the two of you, and that he
hmm
is what we say all business. He's just getting on
Yeah.
with the job.
Yeah. Yeah. He quite likes it, I think.
Hmm.
Like in their plough the field or something,
Yeah.
He's got a job to do.
Yeah, and it's because as you start to guide the body towards healthy function. So whoever engineered and designed the body of a human and the body of a horse, we don't know, but the design is the design. And so what we're trying to do is guide the function of the body according to the way it was designed. And the most important
Mm,
elements for horses well, I should say for people too, is stabilizing that midline of the skull, spine, and pelvis. And then for horses, the importance of engagement is because this long neck and heavy head that sort of hangs out there in front of the legs is
Mm.
really, it kind of perpetually pulls them forward unless they
Yeah.
learn to use the pelvis. And so
Hmm.
wild horses learn it because they move 25 miles a day, never have to be in a stall. They look for food and
Yeah.
water. They're never told
Yeah.
how to move. But domestic horses, we provide food and water and we influence the
Hmm.
movement and we influence the genetics. So
Hmm.
a lot of horses never learn to walk. It's like they're crawling their whole lives
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
learning to use the back and the pelvis to sort of
Yeah.
offset that huge extra mass at the front end of their bodies. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
he's starting to do that. Like even though he's slow, he looks as stable through his hindquarters as I've seen, which we can kind of describe as it's like a purposeful, slow, regular rhythm. And
Hmm.
the hind legs aren't striding perfectly evenly, but they're getting more and more even.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the work on the long reins, which is really affecting the weight shifts left and right, which is how you're guiding the spine into more stability, less bending and less twisting,
Hmm.
and sort of
Hmm.
even helping that long neck and head stay in line with the tail helps him use all of those core muscles along the head, spine, and pelvis the way they're meant to be used.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so they love it because not only does it give them stability, which is what all bodies need on a primary level, but stability in the right place means it's more efficient. So it's more metabolically efficient, it's less calorie burning, it's
Hmm.
easier, it's more comfortable. And so now that you've tucked into this with him, you should start to see what we would call personality changes, as well as physical changes that start to just become more and more apparent. Like he'll start
Hmm.
muscling up in places where he's been a little shallow or atrophied.
Yep.
And then the chronic tight spots will regain the suppleness, and like a massage therapist or body worker would feel that. Oh, he's just not as tight as he used to be on this shoulder or his neck or this
Yeah. Yeah.
hindquarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
his,
she did comment that.
oh, good. Yeah.
Mm. Hmm.
And that's part of why I'm confident in what I teach is because of that confirmation from other professionals. I go, I'm not just making this up. I go, the body is actually changing the right direction, and everybody should recognize that change, any horse professional, other than
Yeah. Yeah.
other than trainers.
Mm.
Because some
Yeah.
trainers look at this and they go, "Oh, he's too lethargic. You need to like wake him up,
Oh,
get him going. You need to
yeah.
get that head pulled in and drive the hindquarters forward." And I go, "That's been the problem." Do you know what
Yeah.
I
I
mean?
know it goes through my head as I'm doing this, and I'm just kind of, toppling along behind him. It goes through my head about what some trainers are be yelling at me.
Hmm. Yeah, but
Yep.
your horse, who's has the most important opinion of all, your horse
Yeah. He
is
loves it.
his ears are half out. He's not heavy. He's not avoiding. He's not stopping. He's just really taking that connection with you and making these internal changes that are feeling better and better to him. And it's like, yeah, he
Hmm.
gets distracted. He does this, he does that. But really, the prevalent energy is very calm, very focused. And you're not having to make these like rapid speed adjustments like we talked about last time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's more consistent.
Yeah,
Even with his level of how much attention he's paying on me, that's improved so much. And I think back to when I used to ride him, I'm surprised I didn't get booted off more than I did. But he would literally not concentrate on me or riding for more than probably 5 seconds.
yeah,
It's always, he was looking out everywhere, and obviously it was probably trying to escape perhaps his body. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, he would never ever be present at all. So
yeah.
this is a huge improvement for his yeah,
And
mental
that to
and
me now, people still label that as behavior. And that to me now is a horse screaming for help. That
oh yeah.
the
Yeah,
horse
I can
has
see it now.
really, yeah, kind of reached the end of his rope, whether it is,
Yeah.
whether it's taking its toll. For some horses, it takes its toll faster on the sort of mental emotional state. And for other
Mm-hmm.
horses, it takes the toll faster in the condition of the body. And I would say, like Pablo's one, where it took hold in the body, but he's a
Mm.
really like, he's a big-hearted horse and he just tries his
Mm.
guts out until he couldn't do it. Where
Yeah, yeah.
Stitch is a little bit more like, my body doesn't feel right. You guys just need to get off and leave me alone. Don't bother me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he turned around and bite your leg. So get
Yeah.
off.
Yes, get off. He goes, I'm trying to be clear, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But no,
It's
this,
funny, and trainers would just say slap him and just get on with it. It's like, oh, they just, yeah. Anyway.
yeah, how's that working? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess that was also the theory one time with children, and we just
Yes,
don't
it
do that
was. It was
anymore.
like, no, no. Yeah. We live and learn, don't we?
Yeah. No, this looks fantastic. So your arms are soft, your body is stable, you're adjusting your speed to match his beautifully. And that is much harder than it sounds. And when like you did a great job from the last lesson with him to this lesson, really being able to
Yeah.
match the speed rather than having to sort of lift and move the
Yeah.
arms so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once it sunk into my head that I had to have like consistent contact on the rein, or the reins, or the
Yeah,
whatever the lead ropes, without me moving them. I then yeah,
yeah.
I got it in my head finally.
No, and what that
Took a while.
does is it just kind of gives that consistent corridor that's narrower.
Mm,
Like when we're hand walking, we're using our body at the shoulder on one side and the fence line on the other side to create a similar
mm-hmm.
corridor. And when you're on the
Yeah.
long reins, whether you're walking behind or you're doing a circle, you've just narrowed that corridor down to the equivalent
Mm,
of your arms and legs while you're riding. So you've just
yeah.
created a much narrower space for the horse to bend laterally or twist the spine. And so that's why it
Mm-hmm.
has such a stabilizing effect as soon as we start using them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did great for just learning the long reins. You are doing fantastic. And I still don't
Oh, good,
think
good.
he's not forward enough to start asking him to do circles on the long reins. I would wait like
Okay.
just there where he lengthened the neck and fell into long and low. He also
Mm-hmm.
picked up his speed a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen more and more often. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to start going to long and low, and he's going to start picking up the speed a little bit as he feels more stable through his midline. And what that means is he's going to start falling forward into long and low. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
more consistent that is, the more beneficial the circles then become, because
Okay.
the circles are going to ask him to increase engagement. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why starting with the ground driving position, you're not really asking for a lot of engagement. So that's why you get the forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if
Yeah.
he picks up the pace a little and keeps his head low, I would say for most of your session and pretty consistently session to session, that would be the
Mhm.
sign that he's ready to move on to trying some circles on the long reins.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
And
So
for
kind of getting around like he is like that, like with his head quite a bit lower, if he kind of does that fairly consistently at a good speed.
yeah, so like let's look
Yep.
at the other video, the other direction. Let's move us over here. There we go.
So they're not the
So
most
right at
riveting things to watch,
so
are
I love it. Like I
Yeah.
love watching a horse come together, and watching you and him come together is just beautiful. Um, so at the end, that was about 15 minutes to the right. And by the end of the
Yeah.
15 minutes, he was starting to come out of that really slow walk and just starting to have a more
Yeah.
normal speed, what we would call a normal speed. And he
Hmm.
was wanting to put his nose on the ground for a lot more strides. So by the
Yeah.
end of the 15 minutes to the right, he was just beginning what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so what you'll notice session to session is like now that you've changed direction, he's sort of back to holding through the neck a little, slow and wobbly, but you're doing a great
Hmm.
job. And so when he's starting out the session like this, but he's ending the session with a complete change of posture, you're absolutely on the right track. It's just a matter of
Hmm.
time. And
Yeah.
what you're going to see as you practice is he spends less time wobbly and shortening the neck and more and more. So that percentage of time is going to change,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Hmm.
So instead of him finding that little bit faster, more normal speed of the walk and his nose on the ground in the last 5 minutes, that's going to start showing up 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes earlier. And by the
Hmm.
time he goes straight to it, like when you put the
Yeah.
long reins on and he just sort of goes forward and lengthens his neck and puts his nose down
Hmm.
in the first 10 minutes of your session,
Yeah.
that's when you know it's time to start moving on to something a little more challenging.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
make
And
sense?
if yeah, it does. And if that happens, because our next session with him won't be for um what a month, I suppose. We do it monthly, don't we? Because we've got
Mhm.
the
Oh,
one
the
in
two of them.
between with
Yep.
the other horse.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So if he happens to kind of improve enough during that time and I start on circles, is it obviously try and make them as large as possible, like 20
Yeah,
meters
well,
or
what I would do, because you've got this great thing going with the way you're working, and the way I would
Mhm,
introduce circles, because you see he's already in that posture now on this direction, and
mhm.
we're at coming up to the 3 minute mark. The fact that he's stopping a little bit is what makes me hesitant to say he's ready for circles right away, because
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it like what we saw the end of the other direction was his pace picked up a little. He got a little more forward energy, and
Mhm,
he didn't stop. He continued the same elevation of forward energy while his nose was on the ground. That's specifically
mhm.
what I'm looking for. And
Okay.
so you're very close to that. And the way I would start to play with circles with him, because it could be in the next 4 to 6 sessions, he's already
Mhm.
more consistent in what I'm talking about. And
Yep.
so what I would do is not change your rein length. So if you're tracking left, what I would
Mhm.
do is close your hand on the length of rein you have on the, say, the inside rein. And then
Yep.
as he's walking, you're going to swing your body from behind him out here to the
Mhm.
inside and get in
Yep.
line with where the saddle would be, or start farther back by maybe the hindquarters. So you can
Yep.
make a little shift from directly behind to sort of 45 degrees off the hindquarter or like 90 degrees off the barrel. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And so
Yeah.
probably to start with, I would just swing out where you're kind of 45 degrees off the hindquarter, and then you're going to stop your feet. And as soon as you're moving your body, you're letting that outside rein slide, but you're holding the inside rein consistent.
Sorry, say that again.
Okay.
So if
So,
yep.
nope, go ahead. Say it back to me.
So I start off like I am doing there, and then I shorten the inside rein and move into where his hindquarters are or where the saddle is, and then I stop my feet.
Well, I'm kind of looking at what you're dragging behind you. If you were another 2 to 3 feet closer to him, that would be as short of an inside rein as I would try on a circle. You're kind of I think you have enough outside rein that you don't necessarily have to shorten the inside rein. But what you're doing is
Oh, okay.
you're transitioning from using two reins equally to using just the inside rein. Think of it as going from the regular rein use, like you're doing now,
Yeah.
into a lunge line that's going to become the radius of your circle.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's gonna define the size of the circle. So
Yeah.
as soon as you're moving, if you go towards him, you might have to shorten the inside rein because it will get loose, which is fine,
Yes.
but you don't want to
Yep.
wind up with a circle that's too small,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So you can even practice this for yourself before you ask him for a circle. With
Yeah.
right now, you're directly behind the tail, matching the speed, right? You can step to the
Yeah,
left
to the
or right
side.
side, and what you
Yeah.
feel is you don't have to adjust the inside rein at all if you're just stepping to that side, but you do have to let the outside rein get longer because you're changing the position
Yeah.
of your body. Does that
Okay,
make
yeah, that
sense?
makes sense. And then yeah, and then when he is going around on a circle, obviously I hold the outside rein still with enough tension so it stays at his midline.
It just can't fall below the hocks. But
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
you don't want it above the middle of the belly or below the hocks. And
yeah,
he's still stopping enough that what you might start with is kind of play with how do I adjust the length of both lines and my body to just alter my position from
yeah,
directly behind the tail to 45 degrees off of his hip. And you can
yeah,
continue to keep him on the fence line from that position. You can keep
yeah,
driving him straight down the fence line, but you have to change how you're using the reins a little bit when you change your body
yeah,
position. But
yeah,
that
okay,
might be a
yeah,
good way for you to practice, kind of move towards that circular position for you and feel how to keep the tension in both reins the same when you do that. And then if he's nicely forward, as soon as you change position, he might take that opportunity to stop and monkey with you. So you got to work through that anyways. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but once you can swing 45 degrees off of the hip and stop your feet, he's on a circle as soon as you stop your feet. And
yeah,
so
okay,
what you could do is drive him from behind like this, and then maybe in the corners where you've got two fence lines and he's going to kind of make a partial turn anyways. You could swing to the inside of the arena and turn that corner into one circle.
yeah,
And then
okay,
and then immediately come out of the corner and follow the fence line again.
okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
And
Yeah,
then maybe at the opposite diagonal end of the arena, you could do a second circle. And that way the fence
yeah,
line is kind of helping you while you figure out how to
how to
transition.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then when we get to the stage where he's on the circle, I don't know if it's the whole session or
That's a,
whatever, but am I aiming for the circle to be quite large?
it's going to depend. Because
Okay.
the size of the circle is directly related to the deeper or less deep placement of the hind legs that we call engagement. So the
Mm-hmm.
tighter the circle, the more they have to place the hind leg forward towards the center of their body in order to balance. So when
Mm-hmm.
we were using that dynamic influence to increase engagement, which is a more
Yeah.
forward rotation of the pelvis. So a large circle, like a straight line, easy turn, large circle, required less deep placement of the hind legs. So
Mm-hmm.
less engagement or lesser
Yeah.
degree of engagement. And then the
Yeah.
tighter or smaller the circle, also the more precise the circle is, whether it's large or small. But if you do a small, precise circle, you're really asking them to engage the hindquarters quite a lot, like almost the
Mhm.
equivalent to lifting the back when you're riding, that kind of engagement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
you're kind of watching because as soon as you ask for more engagement, then he can either do comfortably or do in a way that makes him feel stable as well as comfortable. He'll just refuse to go forward.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
he'll just start stopping a lot. And so that's where I
Yeah.
go, I'm thinking because he's still slow, because he's still a little wobbly, and because he's
Mhm.
stopping a lot, especially when you track left, he wasn't so much going right, but he's a little less
Yeah.
balanced going left now instead of right. He looks better going right than left.
Mhm.
And if we ask, as soon as like even the corners you're going through are a little bit of a challenge to the engagement. And so when he's
Mhm.
stopping after he's coming out of the corner, he keeps stopping at that same place. That can be a
Mm.
little bit of an indication that the engagement, even required going through those corners, is kind of hitting maximum for where he is right now. So
Yeah. Okay.
a circle would be more than that. So we don't want to put him on a circle too soon and
Yeah.
discourage what you're building up.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause horses follow the path of more comfort, more comfort, more comfort. And
Yes.
as soon as we get a little too
Go backwards.
ambitious, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes
We've.
even with the right theory, we overshoot what we think they can do. And
Oh, I know.
I was talking about Pablo today because I go, it even surprised me. We had to back off from hand walking to leading
Mm.
to getting out of the arena to make some headway with Pablo. And that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how hard it was for him. And you think
Mhm.
it shouldn't be that hard for any horse,
Yeah.
but
Do you know the
there
funny
it
thing
was.
as well? Do you know the funny thing? In the last few weeks, I've had two people say to me, I didn't make any comment back to them, but two people say to me, "Oh, he's okay to ride. Why don't you just get on and ride him?" I'm
Yeah,
thinking, I don't think so. I'm
yeah,
thinking if he's kind of struggling walking by himself, he doesn't need me on his back.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and at a
yeah.
certain level, when he does get more forward, like I think Stitch will be a great horse for you to kind of get back into riding on because
Hmm.
as he changes his coordination, he's a horse that likes to feel stable and he's got the
Hmm.
energy when you add the weight of a rider with the right use. The rider
Hmm.
can really facilitate stability faster than any groundwork, but
Yeah,
it can also be harder for the horse. So some
yeah,
horses respond better to being ridden, and some horses respond better to the groundwork. But I go, they have to at least be able to sort of like maintain a walk. I go, that
yeah.
to me is kind of I go,
Yeah.
what am I going to
Bare basics,
ride?
really.
Yeah, like what am I going to
Exactly.
ride if he won't walk? I
Yeah.
got, there's nothing to ride.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
people go, "Oh, just make him go. He'll do it." And I go, "Well, that's how he got in trouble in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he doesn't want to walk, is because he's so uncomfortable." And so how
Mm-hmm.
is making him less comfortable going to really be logical? It just
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it it's
Yeah. I
illogical.
can see I can see why we went round in so many circles beforehand.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there was big issues we need to deal with.
No, and like I said, body workers, farriers, vets are my favorite people to sort of gauge progress through, especially
Yeah.
because, the change is not easy for all horses. And we're just kind of looking at behavior. We're kind of guessing half the time. We're looking at the body. We're feeling
Mm-hmm.
it. We're doing what we can. But whenever the farrier goes, what are you doing? He's no longer crushing that left heel. Like that
Mm.
tells me the significance of the changes I'm getting, even when the work
Yeah.
looks exactly like this video. I go,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
the feet change shape, the muscles change tone, all kinds of things change that aren't obvious to us unless we're a farrier
Mm.
or vet or a trained body worker. So those are some of
Yeah.
my favorite people in training because they really
Mm.
confirm other people will be criticizing me and they're asking me, "What are you doing? This is amazing." Because,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. I've got
but
the farrier coming or the hoof trimmer coming this morning, so I'm quite eager to see if she can notice any difference with his feet.
yeah, and it may or may not, but like as well
Yeah.
as Stitch is going now, you may start
Mm-hmm.
to see some changes in the hoof growth. And then once he
Mm-hmm.
starts working on circles, you'll see even more changes in the hoof growth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's delicate for him, and I think you said he had kissing spine, so
Yeah,
it's
he did.
like,
Yeah. And he's 16, so he's been going around, however, he's been going around for quite some time, I think.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's not
No,
gonna
but
be, yeah, super
he's
quick, is it?
he's unwinding really steadily and beautifully. And I
Mm-hmm.
think part of it is you're perfectly happy to work on the ground. You're not in a hurry to ride, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just sort of listening to him as you go. And
Yeah,
sometimes we can get in trouble when it's not matching our time frame or we're more ambitious than what we're seeing the horse
yeah,
do.
yeah. We're shocking
But
at that, aren't we, being humans? I'm already on to right. What are we doing next? What are we
yeah.
doing next? I just need to stop.
So
Just
now do you see the
slow down.
difference? Um, Sort of when he's more forward with that long neck, and then like just
Yeah.
there, he had a wobble. Then he tries going forward with the long neck, but this time he stops. So those are
Mm.
kind of, if he were more consistent, kind of
Yes.
going forward with the
Yeah.
long neck, I would say, okay, he's
Mhm.
physically ready for a little bit of
Yeah.
a challenge to that hindquarter engagement. And he's
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
almost there. Like it may be, you certainly wouldn't hurt anything if you didn't do a circle for a month. It's only going to make him better
Yeah.
and stronger.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
he's ready, you can start playing with sort of that next evolution, like with how you do it for yourself. And then
Yeah.
if he could make one lap and go back to, this ground driving, that might
Mm-hmm.
be how you have to introduce it to him, is sort
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
circles per lap. I'm sort of
Yeah.
guessing that would be the way to introduce circles. I think if we just jumped into sort of,
Yeah. Too much too soon.
yeah,
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
on a circle, I
Yes.
just think he couldn't do it and you would get some defensive behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I might do then is obviously it depends on how he goes, but keep going just around doing the straight lines and then closer maybe to the end of the month, if he's going well, maybe just practice like a few, like you said, going around in the corners, circles, so that when I take the video for the next month, you can see how I'm doing the circles, even if it's just, you know, 1 or 2 per session. Then
Perfect.
yeah, we can tweak my technique if needed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah. Because that way, if I see you play with circle, I know he'll be ready in another 30 days of this regular work. He'll definitely be
Mhm.
ready to start incorporating circles of some sort. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure how
yeah,
many or any of that,
yeah.
but you can kind of play with it between now and then. And even if he's not 100% ready and he stops on the circle, show me anyways.
Mhm.
And just
Yeah, yeah,
try
yeah.
some circles on the video, and we can at least look at how you're managing his, you know, when he feels challenged, how you're managing it. Kind of
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
did
that's a
the
good
last,
idea.
yeah, like we did the last long rein video, kind of tweaked a little bit what you were doing,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's come together beautifully.
Yeah, it's funny because you can watch videos and everything else and listen to things, and it's not actually until you do it,
Oh yeah, that's
and then you go, oh, okay, it's
it's where the rubber
yeah,
meets
it
the
needs to
road, as
be.
we say.
It really does,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And the rubber wasn't meeting the road last time, but yeah, it is now.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's so
Yeah.
funny because I'll a lot of times with long reins, that's what's been interesting working with you so remotely through this is I always just introduce the long reins to the horse myself in person, and then I
Mm-hmm.
hand over the long reins to the owner so you can get the feel of it. But the horses, when you're introducing the long reins, it can be a, you know, a bit of a monkey show. And
It was.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
I usually step in and do it. And it was really interesting to have to sort of work with you through the videos to get through that period. And you've done great. But a
Yeah.
lot of times people will watch me do it. And the better you get at it, the less drama there is. And so people are like,
Yeah.
ah, I can do that. That looks easy enough. And I hand them the
Mm.
reins and everything just crashes and burns. Like it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
goes sideways.
Totally. Yeah, and I've done long reining years ago with Pablo, but it was with not very often, but it was with the saddle on or a surcingle
With the
where the
stirrups,
reins,
yes.
yeah, and the reins were held at a certain position. So that's half your battle. Like when you don't have them obviously through a surcingle or something,
Yeah,
they're going everywhere and he was quite he just didn't get what I was asking. So he was backing up and
yeah.
you know, going
And I
everywhere
go,
but forward, really.
compared to doing the long reins this way, it's like you get 1 millimeter of improvement doing it the way, and what you're describing is the way everybody teaches the long reins. That's the traditional way
Yeah,
to do it, which is why
yeah.
I really think it became a lost art because it,
Mm-hmm.
number one, didn't make that big of a difference. And number
Mm-hmm.
two, if the horse got scared, you're in deep doo-doo. Like you
Yeah,
got
okay.
nothing because if a horse really gets scared and takes off, there's no way you can hold on to them. And
Yeah.
if they back up or rear, they can flip over. And I go,
Mm-hmm.
it's so the long reins really got put to the wayside. But when you learn to do them this way, you
Mm-hmm.
see a huge impact on their movement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yep.
as it's just like riding. You've already improved your rein contact and your ability
Yeah.
to ride him by figuring this exercise out and having to keep
Mm-hmm.
a constant adjusting tension on the reins. And that's really what
Mm.
rein contact is when we ride. But again,
Yeah.
you know, people fix and
No
hold
one tells you that, do they?
leverage. Yeah, no, nobody tells you that.
No, no one tells you that.
No.
Yeah.
No, but this is lovely. Like you're working on your riding skills as much as you're working on his balance without a rider. And that's one of
Yeah.
my favorite features of the long reins is it trains horses and riders at the same time. But it's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't I go, there's no shortcuts. You got to feel this. It only
Yeah.
works.
You
The
do.
only benefit is if you develop that feel through the reins, you get a lot of benefit out of this exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And just being in the bubble with him, like it's lovely. Like you and like the whole time concentrating on the process.
Yes, because it changes
Yeah.
that fast. Like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really be what we call being in the middle of the movement, which is a little one of those
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those
Yeah.
riding things that all people say and nobody explains what it means. And
Yes.
to that's what you're doing when you're matching his speed and you're
Mm.
getting in the middle of the movement. There's a connection there that is unlike anything else. But
Mm.
you have to adjust constantly to stay in the middle of a moving object.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
just get to be static. You
No,
have
it's a constant
it
thing. Yeah.
it's a constant and it takes quite a bit of focus for us to do it well.
Mm. Yeah. And when we're in the moment, he's listening to me. You know, he's not at the moment, he's looking over in the bush at the
Right.
boogeyman, but yeah, he's listening and yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice.
That connection, you can see it. You
Mm.
can see it. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
two of you, when you nail that connection, you're moving as one unit, even though there's a rein connection and a distance. You guys, and you can
Mm-hmm.
tell when he gets distracted or you lose the feel and there's a little disconnect. And then there's these
Yeah.
moments where the two of you are just one unit moving in
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same time, like two dancers. That's the middle of the
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
always trying to make the horse come to us. And I go, it's so much easier if we just match the horse.
Yeah.
Like just match the horse, but that's hard for humans to do. It's a skill we have to kind of work on.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
connection is instant if we just decide to match the horse's speed. I go, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to control the speed to get in the middle of the movement. We can just match what they give us,
Yeah.
even if it's a little bit fluctuating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is lovely. So you
Yeah.
get a big gold star for your
Oh,
ape
thanks.
improvement. You get the gold star.
Love it. Love it. Good, good.
Any questions or anything we want to go back and look at?
No, no, that's been really good. Thank you.
And I would say, um, if you continue to get, like right now, there's a small discrepancy where he's less connected, stable, and consistent going left compared to the right direction. Is
Yeah.
that been kind of consistent? The left's a little harder than tracking right?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I thought it was because the this way is the way I always do second. I thought maybe he's getting a bit tired, but
You can play with that. You could go to the left first and answer that
yes.
question
Yeah.
for yourself. And
Yeah.
if it's consistently, whether it's the first or second direction, if it's a little bit of a balance issue, which I suspect, he falls
Mm-hmm.
forward on his left front a little more than he does on his right front. So he's a little more wobbly
Yeah.
going left. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what I was going to say is what I would do if the discrepancy starts to become more obvious between the left and right direction, then
Yeah.
do your warm up to the right, but do less
Mm-hmm.
time to the right and spend
Yeah.
an extra 10 minutes at least on the left direction and finish on the left direction.
Okay, so doing more time on the weaker side.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's kind of like if you're learning to use your left hand, it just
Mm-hmm.
takes more time to make it as natural as the right
Yeah,
hand. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
So for instance, if it works out that he is I'll start this way first next time just to see if it's a tired thing or it's
Hmm.
a balance thing perhaps. But yeah, if there's one way that's a little bit weaker, then perhaps if I do 10 minutes on the good side and 20 minutes on the weaker side.
Yes, something like that.
And for my half hour. Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
That's good. Yep.
yep.
Lovely. Yeah. I better be
And
off shortly as well. Sorry, I've got my farrier coming
yes,
any moment.
yep. Nope,
Yeah.
that is fantastic. And I'm glad
Lovely,
your
thank you.
picture and sound is working again. It's easier for the meeting.
Oh, I've got yeah, totally. Rather than just the name on the screen. I got a new laptop from work, so that's good.
Oh, well, it's working very well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, and let me know, maybe email me if your farrier does see any difference in the feet yet. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised either way if there's no change
yeah, yeah.
or if
And it
there's a
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't.
yeah.
Yeah, doesn't matter, just for curiosity, really, isn't it? Just to see if there's anything. And are you okay to meet next Friday with Pablo?
Yes. Let me hang on. Let me stop
Yeah.
the recording and grab my phone.